Muchísimas gracias por venir. Primera pregunta. ¿Cómo llegó usted a encontrar este camino, el camino sufí? ¿Por qué lo escogió?
I was not really choosing it. I think it was the way around. I was chosen. I would have never think of myself to become a Muslim. Not even a Sufi. I was not ever hearing about it before. I was much more interested in Buddhism and yoga. But when I met my Shaykh, Muhammad Nazim Haqqani, I was so overwhelmed by his appearance that I actually fainted in front of his feet. And this was my entrance in Sufism.
¿Qué es el sufismo?
Well, you see, the interesting thing is, it may be the only mystic path where there is not a clear definition about it. And for me, Sufism is the path of love. And there is only one religion. That's the religion of love. And all the other have to bow down to that path. Sufism is the synthesis, for me, of all mystic paths. As it says, wherever you find the truth, it belongs to us. So wherever the truth is expressed, be it in a Buddhist way, or be it in a Jewish way, or in a Christian way, whatever, we take it, we accept it. Because it is our principles. Maybe we could say it is truth, love, simplicity. So you can ask 1,000 Sufis and you will have 1,000 different answers.
Los sufís dicen que el sufismo es un viaje, un camino que conduce al corazón. ¿De qué corazón estamos hablando?
We speak about the physical heart as well as the spiritual heart. And they are very close to each other in location. And first of all, we try to connect with the physical heart. We try to, for example, to recite our mantras, our zikr, with the heartbeat of the physical heart. And so there is a relationship also very strong to the physical heart. When that bond is strong, then it is easier to connect with the spiritual heart as well.
Decía su maestro Maulana, Nazim, que el camino del crecimiento es el camino de la paciencia. ¿Cuáles son las virtudes esenciales que hay que cultivar en el sufismo para tener un buen carácter?
One of the most important virtues, I think, is that you have not to take yourself too much important. And that you see others equally to yourself, or that you see yourself under them even. One I used to say, see yourself as the last. Then you're in the right position. And like this, you cannot develop pride or a superior feeling about others. If you concentrate on your own mistakes, on your own things to develop, you don't have really the time to think about others. Patience is, in any case, valuable.
¿Por qué está el mundo actual en el estado en el que está? ¿Cómo hacer para que vuelva a un camino de bondad?
I met once a sheikh, and he asked me, how far can you look with your eyes? And I said, well, maybe 100 kilometers, if the sight is very good. No? They said, how far can you hear? And I said, well, maybe 1 kilometer. Yeah. And he said, how far can you smell? And I said, well, smell, I don't know, maybe 100 meters. Yeah. And he said, this is the orbit where you can act, yeah, and where you should think. You know, we don't know how the world is. How can we know? This is God's business. And who we are to think that we can save the world or that we can do something. I think we can be happy if we do not destroy our own self, yeah, by our own life, and try to make our own life the best we can. And if everyone tries that, we should have a better world, inshallah. Whatever that may mean. I don't think that there is any group or any philosophy that can save the world. I don't believe in the world. I believe in people. And if someone tries his best, this is enough. More than that, you cannot put on your shoulders.
¿Y de dónde surge tanta insatisfacción?
I don't look to the people like this. I'm not looking to their dissatisfactions.
What do you see then?
Humans, hearts, they are hungry. Sometimes mind a little bit confused. Yeah? But I try not to look at people in a negative way. In the West we have a negative psychology, but in the East we don't. First we look what is good in the person, not what is missing. And then we try to support that goodness. And by this way, what is missing will follow.
Hablemos de emociones negativas. La ira.
Well, anger is a particular emotion, and as we said before, it is a protector. We consider it to be a protector of the ecosystem, that as long as you are angry, you will not turn in. And so the anger is a defense mechanism. And when you understand that, then you can go beyond it.
And what? ¿Qué protege la ira? ¿De qué nos protege la ira?
We have an idealized image of ourselves, and it is permanently attacked by others because it is not true. We also doubt it. We also feel misunderstood and all kinds of things. And anger is all the time waiting to protect it. So, when you sacrifice anger, when you tell the anger, no need to protect me any longer, then he will calm down a lot. And you see, if you have the courage, who you really are.
¿Y quiénes somos realmente?
The question cannot be who we are really, but we can ask, is there a real self? Yes, there is a real self. And that real self has its name because it is connected to reality. And whenever you connect to reality, you will experience a harmony in life. This is one of the effects.
Otra emoción aflictiva, la tristeza.
Sadness. There is sweet sadness also. There is a sadness which is heavy on you. But everything can be experienced with a peace. You see, you cannot be happy with everything. No? Like, let's say, we don't hope so, one of your children dies, yeah, too early, before you, then this is not something you can be happy about, but you can be in peace with it. And so sadness depends the reason of the sadness. The sadness gives you intimacy with yourself. It is a step towards yourself. So all these feelings, you shouldn't see them as something against you. They are always an invitation towards you.
Y la noción del miedo, que parece que está en la base de todas las emociones aflictivas.
Fear the same. You see, every feeling is an invitation. And the fear is the final invitation. If you can cross the fear, if you can transpass fear, you will live in freedom. And this is how we are born, and how we should go from this world as well.
Hablemos un poco del método para poder atravesar estas emociones que vamos nombrando. Decía su maestro, que no pase un solo aliento sin el continuo recuerdo de Dios. ¿Cuál es la esencia del recuerdo de Dios del Dhikr como pedagogía espiritual?
Well, Dhikr reconnects you. No? Reconnects you to where we came from and what we forgot about. No? We all have an origin. And the origin is not that we were a microbic being somewhere and then we developed and then we have been found. No, we had come through the womb of our mothers and we have been given a soul, and that soul has an heavenly origin. So when we come in this earth, the divine game starts, and it is called hide and seek. So God hides from us, and He likes us to seek Him. And the Dhikr helps us to find.
El esfuerzo de aprender a observarse, que va produciendo los distintos grados de concentración cuando se enfoca hacia uno mismo y uno va cogiendo conciencia de sí.
When you observe, first of all, it is important to understand from which position you observe. So the interesting fact is, first of all, that we can observe. Everyone is able to observe himself, in his thoughts, in his emotions, in his physical condition. And this is something, only we have it. No one else has it on this earth. No other creature. And the way you do that can differ very much from person to person. The ideal position is that you try to be as neutral as possible what you observe. And so, for example, you observe, let's say, envy. And you find that there is envy in you. Then it is important that you stay neutral and friendly with yourself, and you don't start to judge and say, oh my God, how bad is it that I'm envy? No? So there's different levels of concentration on different points. Usually we concentrate very much on our emotions. And concentrating on the emotions means you feed them in a way. And that is something which doesn't really take you very far. So it is better to concentrate on the energy of the emotion. What kind of energy it carries. And if you look more to the energy of the emotion, and not also, especially not to the one who caused you the emotion, then you can benefit from this kind of observation. Yeah. Otherwise, the observation will lead you into a labyrinth, yeah, of all kinds of projections that you say, why this person does this or did that, or maybe they think about me like this or like that, or I heard they were talking about me and not in a good way, yeah, and so on and so on. And like this, you will never come out, yeah, of reaction. Yeah. So observing yourself should not lead you to reaction, yeah, but the way around. It enables you to become, to reach the power, yeah, back, in a way that you take the power back, that you are able to act, yeah, and to shape your life accordingly.
¿Por qué se dice en el sufismo que quien conoce a Dios, quien conoce a sí mismo, se conoce a Dios?
Well, this is a famous saying from the Prophet ﷺ. And in a way we can say this is the meaning of life. Yeah. Because what should be the meaning of life? No? If not to know yourself, so that you can reconnect. Yeah. So in a way, why it is said that who knows himself knows God? Yeah. Because we are made in the image of God. Yeah. It says in the Book of Love in the Holy Quran, we are Khalifatullah, we are the representative of Allah. So if we are the representatives, we have to carry the same attributes than what we represent, no? Because otherwise how should we be able to represent God? Therefore, it is the way back to our real nature, which is the divine itself. Yes.
¿Qué ha supuesto en el mundo moderno la irrupción de la tecnología y la relación que tiene con esta precipitación vertiginosa del tiempo, ¿no?, en el que todos estamos inmersos?
The technology has many different aspects, you know? And it will depend very much on us. How do we integrate it, and how also that we see that there is some technology which doesn't serve us. And that will be the challenge of the modern man, to have a very clear understanding which technology is actually not good for us, and we have to change it or we have to leave it, and which of it benefits us. Yeah. We cannot go back. Yeah. Even there is some groups, they had a very clear vision about the appearance of machines. For example, the Shakers, and there is this other group. They live in Pennsylvania, also a Christian group which keeps off the Quakers, I think, or the Quakers, the Shakers, all kinds of this. That they keep off of machines. They do everything without machines. And it seems that they are in a way very happy people. Yeah. And they keep these old values, which they learned in their old days. And it has a wisdom, actually. But for most of us, we cannot come back to this kind of life. And so we have to learn not to be dominated by technology. That's not easy, and especially we have to look for our children. If parents think that they can let them play all these video games without any effects on them, that is also believing on Santa Claus. No? It is clear that it has effects, and it has not positive effects. So The same for ourselves. If we play too much in this kind of virtual worlds, we're going to lose ourselves one way or the other. That will be the biggest challenge as far as I can see. Not to go into the next level of virtuality, which is in front of our door, but to stay connected to nature, to cultivate the connection to nature, to cultivate hours where you are free from any kind of technological interaction. This is important.
¿Cuál sería la relación armoniosa con la naturaleza entre el hombre y la tierra, ¿no? Cómo aprender a leer el viento y a recuperar esos sentidos abiertos al lenguaje sagrado de la tierra.
Well, we are a child of nature, no? So there is not really something to learn in the sense that we have to learn, but nature will teach us in the moment we are in nature. And as we are a child of nature, as we carry an animal body in us, the moment you are in nature, your instinctive self will awaken again. And you will find that strength comes from there, that comfort comes from there. And in time, you will learn to move again harmonically inside. Nature is in any way more powerful than us. And there came a tourist to the desert, and he was complaining that it was too hot, and that it was too much sun everywhere, and that it was all kinds of difficulties. And then the tour guide said to him, well, now you are here in the desert. You have to adapt to the desert, not the desert to you. And in any way, we will not be able to dominate nature or to dominate earth. This kind of wrestling will not come good out for us. At the end, earth will be victorious. No matter what we do, we cannot win this silly behavior to poison everything and to destroy nature in the big measures. This is a very unintelligent behavior we have. If we don't calm down in that, nature will just shake off, by whatever, by wind, by water, by fire, whatever it will be. And the message will be clear. You are not compatible here. You are not able to live on this planet.
Pasemos ahora a hablar de métodos que nos permitan reconectar. Decía Rumi que en las cadencias de la música hay un secreto escondido. Si te lo revelara, conmovería al mundo. ¿Cuál es el secreto de la música para reconectarnos?
Well, we say love has a sister, and her name is music. And in the moment you start to listen to your own self and you reconnect with your heart, you will hear sounds inside of you, heavenly sounds. And the divine sphere is full of sounds, and there's cosmic sounds. One is Om, that's the generating sound, and there is a Hu, which is the sound of presence. So there is a lot of sound, a lot of melodies. If you can catch one, it will give you joy, happiness. If someone cannot find it, it is good to listen to classic music, especially Bach, Beethoven. It's very advisable to listen to them. And by doing so, you will find that something new opens. There is music, there is notes, there is special times where special notes affect you. It is a very deep science. We cannot talk about it really in all the depths now, but if I had to open a school, it would be obligatory for every student to learn an instrument and to find its way somehow with music.
En el sufismo hay una reunión alrededor de la música, el sama, ¿no? De los maulevis, ¿no? El que se gira y la música ya adquiere como una función de unir el cielo con la tierra. ¿Podrías contarnos un poco acerca de esa tradición sufí del sama?
Well, sama, actually it means to listen. So you have, for example, sama also in the Chisti tradition, but without whirling, because sama means listening. And it says if the dervish doesn't listen longer than 3 days to Qawwali or to other Sufi music, his soul dies. So what you learn in Sama is to listen. Listen is the precondition to hear. And by listening, you get taught. You have to learn to listen. And if you listen, you must take yourself down. The inner noise must become quiet. You have to stop to speak with yourself permanently, and you have to learn to listen. Listening is everything. Listen is awakening. And only a very few people are able to listen. They think that they listen because they hear, but listening is far above hearing. Listening can only happen if you become quiet in yourself. This is not that easy. But if you reach to it, you will be told everything you ever wanted to know.
Para aprender a escuchar hace falta un maestro.
If you want to improve yourself, it is always advisable to find someone who is better than your own self in this discipline. So if you find a man who is a master in listening, and you want to learn to listen, and there is a master in listening that will give you a lot of time, that saves you a lot of time, lifetime. So whenever you want to learn something, it's in every case advisable to find someone who knows more about this matter than you. And it is a position of the ego that it thinks it knows. But everyone has to ask himself first, why am I not happy then? If I know why I cannot find happiness, peace, joy in myself for longer than some moments, and I know. So either your knowledge is incomplete or you just don't know. And it's not a shame not to know. So my advice would be, find someone who knows more than you, who is able to listen better than you, who has mastered himself in these disciplines, and what can you lose? What can you lose? This is not an intelligent position. to say, I am going by myself. What for? What do you win by that? If someone is happy to help, why you shouldn't take it?
Y en estos tiempos, ¿cómo se distinguen los verdaderos maestros? ¿Cuáles son los frutos por los que podemos distinguir de tantísima pseudo-espiritualidad o falsa espiritualidad en la que estamos?
Everyone will attract what he is ready for. If you are not really ready, then there will be people, they give you exactly this, that you sing a little bit, you meditate a little bit, they are not gonna really touch you. Then there is, I wouldn't call them masters, we would call them more like teachers. Then in the masters there is different degrees. There is the master, what we call the Shaykh Burhanuddin, is the one who has blessings with him. And if you are with him, you feel these blessings, this person is blessed, and the blessings, they come to you. Then the highest one is what we call Shaykh Tarbiyah, the one who can educate. There are not many like this, and it is a completely different matter. This is not for everyone, but it is also not something you choose. If it happens to you, it happens. If not, it is fine as it is. Every soul is looked after in its right time. When it is your time, that you really want to go and that you really want to awaken, you will look for one who is awakened. And that one will look for you. It is always two ways. The moment you shout, the moment you long, there is someone else who listens.
Pues más mis preguntas ya están, a no ser que quiera aportar usted algo más.
Too much questions. Yes. It is good. We need to ask questions sometimes. No? But if you ask a question, you must first know if you are ready for the answer. So, therefore, in our tradition, we do not ask that many questions. But it is good for people to hear something. And we are happy if we can benefit anybody through our answers. And may Allah bless your audience and the people who look at those things, and that they can benefit from our humble conversation and that they find success in their lives. Thank you.